Beautiful. Welcome back to the Flogsville podcast, or should I say, I am here in Aotearoa, or otherwise known as New Zealand. You can't see me right now as we're having some Wi-Fi difficulties. This is groundbreaking what we're doing. We've gone international with Flogsville round 17 reps. Hello, Ben.
Hello, mate. I think I'm on cue. No, pleasure to be with you, mate, even though I can't obviously visibly see you, but it's great to be back and, and analysing everything on the weekend.
Very good, mate. Good to have you back on. And, of course, we've got joining him, coach of the Rabbitohs, Daniel. Hello, mate.
Hello, Scott. Fantastic to be here as well. I thought over all these years watching TV, the delay that you used to see on interstate and overseas telecasts was a bit of a piss take, but things are proving to be true so far, so we'll see how we go.
Very good, boys. Well, let's get stuck into what was a big round, again with some high scores and some shocking scores, and we'll get stuck into that. But, of course, we've got to start with our Pug of the Week. It was Ben, the Guns N' Roses, once again with a 23.04. Mate, talk us through your week.
Thank you, mate. Yes, all of a sudden got a little bit cold, so I had to bring the merch back out for the for the viewers. No, it was a reasonable week. Started off really well with Callum Mills on Friday night, laying 85 tackles from all reports. So. But no, the captain's Brayshaw was turned out to be really handy in comparison to some other captains, I think, this weekend, as opposed to the likes of Neil, who I'm sure we'll get to with some deciding some matchups. So, really happy and keep the momentum rolling.
Excellent work, mate. Rabs, can you spot anything from Ben's side?
A lot of big scores, which is not a surprise, but probably happy with his own work, I would assume, or we can see that through the visuals we've got there. But but based on dealing with the Whitfield scenario of 40, and also Dawson only sort of getting 76 to get a 2300, you've got to be happy with that. So very solid week.
Very good, boys. All right, let's get stuck into our first matchup, and it was the Crouching Lions up against Smith's Crips, and it was a must-win game for Liam, and win he did, boys. Huge win for Liam to keep his season alive, the reigning champ. Talk us through this one, boys.
Yeah, absolutely massive result, really. For Brett on the other side of things, I'm sure we'll touch on later, but top four ramifications with a couple of teams in fifth and sixth coming up to pressure that spot, and he's got a challenging last couple of weeks. So, lots of big uniques here for both sides. But for Newsy to win with Whitfield as a unique is a massive effort. Headline there by Brayshaw and Mills as uniques. So obviously the captain difference here, Neil 67 for Brett as opposed to 132 for Laird. That's pretty much the difference really when you look at it. So we talk about it a lot, Scotty, and on this podcast, captain differences at this time of year can win and lose games, and this is the prime example.
Absolutely, Ben. I'll just jump in there. So, pretty solid summary, to be honest. Though I think having Brayshaw and Mills as pods, then coupling that with Neil as captain on the other side is a huge sort of turnaround there. So as we said, massive win for Liam. Definitely a must win game, and he managed to do that. And as we said, for Brett, probably had the opportunity to consolidate himself in the top four, and still looking strong, but has just left the door slightly ajar with a tough run to come in the last couple of games as well.
Brilliant analysis, boys. Fantastic result for Liam. Let's move on to our next matchup. We had, my God, your Liberatore up against Armacrae. You've done it again. A top four matchup, boys. And it was Sam pulling off a big 12-point victory.
I'll start this one off. So having a look, there's a couple of names that actually stand out in this one, to be honest, on both sides. So obviously Neil as a pod for Sam underperforming, which I'm sure we're going to get to a number of times. But on Hugh's side, not only dealing with the Whitfield 40, but also Marcus Windhager on field with a 27. I must admit, I'm not sure, Ben, if you know much of the backstory about how that has sort of happened of Windhager ending up on field. I know he's had some injury dramas to contend with the last few weeks, but that's clearly had a significant impact when you lose by 12 points to field of 27. But yeah, two very solid sides who are going to be around the mark, you would have thought. But yeah, Sam just getting the job done mainly thanks to that 27.
Yeah, you touched on it beautifully. I think some cash issues for the Liberatores at that last forward spot and not really having the options to get up to anyone, I think, of any note. But yeah, obviously 27 is not what you want at this time of year. But also on Sam's side, Luke Jackson hanging on to him for that week and only returning a 52 sort of evened it out a bit. But Sam's looking really, really good. Yeah, he's in second now, game clear in second. So you'd think that he would lock away that for the remaining of the season. And yeah, I think the situation was Doherty needed 70 in the last half, 36 in the last quarter, and yeah, he came home really strong. So showing why he's probably the best defender going around and getting Sam the win.
Brilliant. Fantastic, boys. Let's move on to our next matchup. It was the B Sharps up against my boys, Sarong, but also right, just floating around that little video with Caleb Sarong on Twitter. Must watch, really. It's some interesting. I managed to get a win, which was nice, despite a terrible captain's score from Lockie Neal. My goodness, we would have been right up there in the mix if didn't have that to deal with. But luckily, Dale also had Lockie Neal, so that was nice, boys.
Yeah, I think we'll put together what we heard from there, Rabs. I'm not sure how that came across, but we'll try to decipher it. Eddie Brayshaw, again, sticking out like dog's balls is unique for you, Scotty. And Connor Rozee had an absolutely phenomenal game from yourself, Scotty. A few other coaches traded him out for his 125, but you've got to be happy with his 4 goals too and put on a show. So, yeah, massive win for yourself. Keeping what's that, 7th spot, but keeping a few other teams out of the 8 there. So got to be happy with that, mate. Absolutely, mate.
Yeah, I was very happy to see Connor Rozee dominate and a few others too. Nice Jack Sinclair. I liked him a lot. I've had him for a couple of years in our keeper league. Big fan of his. So for him to come in and produce first up was very nice also.
Yeah, very, very solid score there, Scott. I think particularly given the Neil captaincy, I don't think that score can be undersold. You know, getting 2,200 with a captain in the 60s, I think is a little bit ominous. Obviously, the Sarongs have been a fairly imposing side over the years, and despite sitting in 7th, I think there's still the possibility that they're going to play a fair role come the business end of the season.
Excellent. All right, let's move on to your matchup, Ben. You had a nice victory over the Glen Manton Fan Club. We've spoken about your boys. Let's speak about Sean. A little bit of a drop-off since the buys, but a few of his pods really delivering.
Yeah. No, I think, coming off pick of the week last week, he obviously had a really good week. With all of his midfielders going 100 plus from memory, apart from one maybe. But yeah, this week Noah Anderson backing up again with that great siren to get him some extra points for a big 140. And Mitch Duncan, watching that Thursday night, was reasonably comfortable for 90% of that game until he put on a show in the last 10 minutes and went bananas really for his vice captain loophole. So. Unfortunately, that was probably where it ended for him, bringing in Bailey Dale to be clamped by Ryan Clark for a 20-point second half, I think. Unfortunately for him, but happy to win and move on, obviously.
Yeah, pretty solid win, as we touched on earlier. But on Sean's side, I think probably just indicative of the nature of his side. Picking some guys like Salem and Dale who can potentially pump out those big scores, as we saw last week, and that was showed through getting pick of the week. but don't necessarily have that consistency. So still putting out a 2200, which is a solid score, but not quite enough this week.
All right, let's move on. We're only going to cover this very briefly, boys. It was the Burpens with a huge victory over the Total Eclipse of the Heart. The Burpens still outside of the 8, I believe, but one of those sides, along with Liam, that are producing some great scores week after week.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Scott. Looking pretty strong, Brad, and we've sort of mentioned this for a few weeks that it's going to be very, very tight when it comes to finals time, and there's going to be some good teams that miss out, and this is just continuing to show that. So, yeah, Laird as captain, obviously a very good choice when it comes to captaincy choice for Brad. Still dealing with Whitfield, as a couple of people were, but yeah, some big scores from Laird, as we said, Doherty, and also Mills really popping up his score there. So, pretty solid team, and just going to be around the mark, but it's going to be challenging for that final spot in the 8.
Yeah, for sure. Big win, but also big win in the context. We'll come to it later, but basically him and Tom play each other this week, and the winner will be in the 8 and the loser won't. So, huge win in the context of his season.
All right, let's move on. It was Jake getting the victory over the Midfielders boys. A nice win for the Keys.
Yeah, a little bit to digest here. A couple of underwhelming scores with a couple of funny sort of unique things here. James Sicily as the captain for the midfielders. That's a brave call, but he did have a nice game, I guess. But there's a lot of uniques. I think Jake just getting the win is probably a little bit too late for him, unfortunately. But yeah, good on him, I guess.
Just noticing Joe Danaher, who I believe would have been an inclusion for the midfielders as well. Quite a lateral choice. Fair to say, probably not the most effective of choices with a 32 there for Todd. A little bit disappointing, but yeah, too many rookies or just mid prices for mids with blokes like McInerney Butters has been performing reasonably well, but Saligo as well. And Jake, we touched on, he's had some good moments this season, but probably just going to fall a little bit short of finals, unfortunately.
Yes, it seems that way. All right, boys, now we flagged this before the weekend. This was going to be a hell of a matchup, and it was. The Sisterhoods have not only defeated one of their assistant coaches or their partners, but they've gone and beat the other one with a massive win over Phenomenal boys. Talk us through this.
Huge result, Scott, it'd be fair to say. I'm sure there's been lots of discussion behind the scenes about this one. Big win in the context of the season, in all seriousness too, for both sides, which we've already touched on a little bit. But yeah, on Tom's side, 2 GWS players really standing out in Jacob Weir and Lockie Whitfield, which when you go down by less than 100 and you have 2 players combined for a score of 74, you've got to think that that's had a fair impact on the contest. I know he's made up for it with Laird as the captain, but on the flip side of things, the Sisterhoods with Lockie Neal as captain, similar to what we've mentioned for some other teams, to pump out a near 2,200 score with a captain in the 60s is a real sign of how strong that side is looking, and they're going to be a real contender this year.
Absolutely. Yeah. Luke Jackson, obviously the only other area of concern, I think, for the Hoods, but apart from that, they're looking really strong. Mentioned it before, but within a game of 3rd and 4th now, so with their points 4 looking reasonably healthy, we could see, we've seen a fairy tale of sorts to get into the 8, but we could see a top 4 berth for them. So that would be something. But I think after having fed up this week, having a loss and not being here tonight, I think that speaks a little bit about where the franchise is at.
No, perfect analysis, boys. Now the Sisterhoods are rolling, but we'll get into what lies this week. It's a big one, but let's move on, Rabs. You had a nice victory over Team GC. Talk us through this one, mate.
Yeah, pretty scrappy win, you'd say, but very, very important one. Pretty much wrote this one off, to be honest, early on Sunday, and then a few of the Carlton boys came home strong for us, which is very handy. But yeah, very, very important win. Obviously got shot myself in the foot with Neil as captain, as a number of other people have, which was compounded by Laird as captain on the other side. But Mason Redmond out of the Team GC, probably proving quite vital with the Weir coming on field with 34. But yeah, very, very important win. Not a great score, but hopefully, yeah, if we can, I'm sure we'll dive into it later, but we've got a winnable game this week. And I think hopefully that might set us up so we can make some positive changes in the next few weeks leading into finals.
Yeah, you'd have to be pretty happy with Sam Dockery's second half when you win by 22 points, Rabs. And Ned Reeves, that's an unusual name I've seen floating in that ruck position. Can you talk us through that one, please?
Yeah. No, similar to what we discussed with Hughside earlier, just a bit of a cash limitation there. And we might be facing a similar possibility this week, unfortunately, in the ruck department. But I can't even remember who the ruck was who was in there, to be honest, but it was someone very cheap. And yeah, the original plan, to be honest, was to go to the X-Man from North Melbourne, and then obviously discovered that he was unavailable for selection. So Reevesy was our best option. We're sort of hoping for a 70, only got himself to 53. So fair to say he probably won't be in the side this week, but I can't guarantee we'll be getting anyone much better for this week anyway.
Excellent work, mate. All right. Last matchup, boys. It was King Kunta up against the Hoffleberries. Hoffleberry FC, of course, getting the victory. Just a quick few words on this one, boys, and then we've got some massive games to get stuck into.
Yeah, not too many words, I don't think. Unfortunately for Pete, very underwhelming this year. Headlined by those sort of names of defence. Bowie, Boston being out, and the Lizard really slithering his way back there. But yeah, Lockie Neal as captain, clearly not up to the mustard this week, and it's sort of been the tale of his year, unfortunately. So Surge gets a win, but yeah, not much to write home about from either of these two, unfortunately.
No, similar thoughts from me. I think pretty comfortable win for Surge, but on the flip side of it, if Vlostone plays, if Whitfield doesn't get 40 and he goes with a better captaincy choice, it's all of a sudden quite a close game. So yeah, two sides that haven't had the best season, but a win for Surge.
Very good, boys. All right, round 18, huge round, boys. We start with the Crouching Lions up against Armacray. You've done it again. Top 4 battle here, boys. Huge game. What's going to happen?
It's a massive round. The way that the fixtures turned out, the top 4 play each other, and there's some really pivotal games between 5th and 10th type areas. So for this one in particular, for Brett, he's really needing to win this one. Otherwise, he could get leaked out of the top 4. So Clayton Oliver is unique for him. That's going to be probably a concern with a fractured thumb and having surgery, and obviously in doubt. So I think just based on that, Sam probably has the option to have a bit more luxury, and he should cash in. And Laird being a unique as a captain option will probably top it off for him, I'd say.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think the Oliver issue stands right there in your face in terms of what Brett's dealing with, and I think Sam's clearly got a very strong side. He's sitting where he is for a reason. I think you would expect he'll try and move Jackson on. So how he's able to do that and how much money he's got, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I'd be leaning towards Sam as well.
Excellent analysis, boys. Let's move on to an equally important game here. We've got Smiths Cripps, who are banging down the door of that 8th spot, up against my boys, who are just hanging on to top 8. Huge game, this one. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about Clayton Oliver, but what else stands out, boys?
Another massive game. I must admit, I hadn't studied this round a hell of a lot. Not saying I don't do any research before the show, but this is a massive round, and this is a huge game as well that's really going to help shape the 8. So I think, yeah, Clayton Oliver, again, is going to stand out in every matchup that he's in, and the uncertainty around that. But looking through, quite a few pods, to be honest, for this time of the season in this type of matchup. Yeah, Whitfield's a bit of a question in terms of how he'll bounce back after last week, whether that was a bit of a abnormality. So I feel like I'm probably just leaning towards your side, Scott, but I think it's a real flip of the coin, to be honest.
Beautifully summed up, mate. Obviously, elimination for Millsy. I think, yeah, I'm liking some of his uniques. Laird, Mills, shown some big ceilings lately. Tim English as well as a unique. So Both really tight. I'll probably have to favour Millsy just on the Clayton Oliver factor potentially. So.
No, yeah, absolutely agree with you, Rabs. I think it will be flip of a coin and captaincy choice. My goodness, I need a better captain. I've been struggling the past few weeks, so we need a good captain this week. Let's move on to a bit of a derby game. We've got a few this round, but we've got the Liberatores up against your boys, Ben. Talk us through this one.
Yeah, pivotal game in the Penong household this week. Huey obviously coming off a couple of losses against other top 4 teams, so he'd be keen to rectify that ship. And yeah, if he drops it, he's again in danger of dropping out the 4, depending on other results. So not many uniques, but the one that sticks out like dogs balls is Windager at F6. And having done a little bit of research, I'm not sure that's going to change too much this week. So yeah, obviously back ourselves in and hope for the best. But yeah, that's sort of where we're sitting.
Yeah, I think Windhager is clearly the biggest issue, because if you take that factor out of the game, I think it shapes as a very, very close game. Hugh's got some pretty solid pods who you'd expect to do good things, like English, Laird, Petrarca, and possibly even Himmelberg, depending on the conditions. So I think it'll still be tight, but I think, that if there's not a huge ability to change much about F6, then I think he's going to be in strife.
Nah, very good, boys. Will the unbeaten season come to an end? We'll find out very quickly. The B Sharps to beat Total Eclipse, boys.
Yep.
Agree.
All right. Very quickly also for this one, Glen Manton versus the Keys. A bit of an interesting one, a unique matchup, I would say. What are you boys thinking?
Yeah, very much so. I think two sides that do like to go a little bit unique with selections. Because of that, almost impossible to predict what's going to happen. But having said that, I'm going to back Sean in, just because I think he's showed quite a bit at stages this season. I think he's got probably a little bit more likelihood to pump out a big score than Jake's side, who have also improved.
Yeah, I agree. I think Yuli's got some dangerous players who can go big on midday. So I think that's where it will go.
Very good. All right. A huge matchup, boys. We've got the Burp and Burt Burtons up against Phenomenal for that 8th spot. The winner will get into the finals, probably. And the loser, that's maybe curtains here. What is going to happen? You'd have to favour the Burpins, I think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really tight. The one thing to note out of this one is Phenomenal have 200K in the bank. I'm going to fix the D6 position, as you mentioned before, Rabs. Obviously, still fielding a rookie for Fenno. But yeah, both having Clayton Oliver, so waiting to see where that one lands. But I think, I don't know, I tend to like the Burtons. I think they're rolling quite nicely. I think they've got some good depth. And I think, some of the uniques, having Brayshaw as unique again, Mills, Miller, these types, Dawson, who can go really big. Even Sean Darcy against the Reckless Swans should go pretty well. So I think I'll be back in the Burtons.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think this is going to be trouble for Phenomenal, to be honest, in this game, because, as you said, the ceiling on those pods for Brad's team are much stronger. When you look at Doherty, Brayshaw, Miller and Mills, you'd be hard-pressed to think, and even Dawson, to be honest, that one of those isn't going to go massive. Darcy's got a favourable matchup. And on the flip side, for me, Sinclair probably looms as the only one who's got that capability of really pumping out a massive score. So, yeah, obviously cash in the bank, but I think Tom might be in some strife this week.
Excellent, boys. Just a quick word on the midfielders up against Team GC. I think I'll be backing in Team GC for this one.
Yes. Yeah, why not? He's got some nice pods there. Yeah, give him a go.
Agreed.
All right, boys. Now, the time has come. This matchup, we have been waiting for so long. It all started when the Sisterhoods entered the league. There's been a real, just a bit of tension between these two sides and a genuine hatred amongst these two sides. Of course, it is the Sisterhoods up against Hoppleberry FC. My goodness, boys, goodness gracious me, there could be some ramifications at the end of this result.
big build up and probably going to be a big result, I think, because I can only really see this going one way, to be honest, Scott, and that is the way of the sisterhoods. I know Serge has got some quality players on his side, but they just haven't been consistent enough, and they're surrounded by the likes of Jamison and Coleman and Nick Martin and these types. So I cannot see how he's going to get the job done this week.
I completely agree. Huge weekend. I can't see how the Hoods are not going to be in the 4 after the weekend, to be honest. So, back them in. Go the Hoods.
Very good. Just a worthy note, boys. Game 350 for Scott Pendlebury. Will Serge put the C on him, do you think?
Why not? Against the Crows, it's genuinely a good matchup. But of those 350, how many do you think he's been in Serge's team?
Oh, that's a great question.
I'd say at least 340.
Oh, it would have to be. Number 1 ticket holder. All right, let's go into the last matchup, and it is, of course, the Rabbitohs up against King Kunta and Rabs. You just got to win this week.
Just got to win this one. Definitely looking ahead to a matchup against the Sisterhoods in the last round, which potentially shapes as a bit of a final 8 decider in some ways in terms of where people will land. So, just one of those games just got to win. One pretty ugly last week against Team GC, and would be happy to do the same again this week, to be honest. And hopefully we've got enough talent there. Reevesy won't quite make the cut this week, but as I said, not sure we'll have a massive upgrade this week. Hopefully more in store in the future, but just need to win.
Oh, perfect, boys. Thank you for joining me here in an international version of the podcast, of course. And good luck and go well to everyone. Hopefully it's a nice selection tomorrow night. No Thursday night game, which is nice. So we'll be able to digest what happens. And my goodness, next Wednesday night, can't wait to review what's going on, because it is a huge, huge round, boys. That'll about do it, I reckon. So good luck all.
Thank you.